Hello, I am Jeffrey Wong, and this is our Squid Game Dice Game project. Today we'll be showing you how the game plays and how it runs. I wrote the code for the inner mechanics as well as animation and sound.
I'm Jonathan, and I did the roll buttons and both player movements.
This is our code for the Squid Game menu. Let's see how it runs. Here we have the game menu. Notice that the music playing in the background. There are two buttons, the help button and the start button. Let's go to the help button so we can see the rules. As you can see here are the main rules of the game of Squid. The goal of the game is to match the dice number from 1 to 6 and build up your Squid picture. You must get every number from 1 to 6 in order, but not in a row. Each part of the Squid picture is labeled from 1 to 6 respectively, and getting a number and rising will grant you more pieces of the Squid picture. Once a player has reached all 6 pieces of the Squid, players must hit their Squid button faster than their opponent can. If the one with the finished Squid hits their Squid button faster, they get 1 point, and you can press the next turn button to reset the round. If they do not, their last turn is voided, and they will be left with 5 pieces out of 6. Same thing with a computer player. The game is best of 3, however, winning 2 rounds in a row will win the game outright. It's not all just random chance. You get a whole arsenal of 3 strategies or strategies button to use from. You can use one each per round. The computer, however, gets an infinite amount because the AI is pretty stupid. These strategies let you reroll your turn, skip the other player's turn, and voids the player's previous turn. Now let's talk about how the menu works, all right? As you can see here, when the Squid Game menu opens up, it takes out the audio file of menu music and plays the sound. And there are also a bunch of other functions where the help button runs the rules, the start button, the start button will delete the Squid Game app and run the game screen app. But let's look at the rules, where the only function is to have an exit button that deletes itself. Now let's see how the actual game is played. Now I know all of this looks like a lot, but you have to brace with me for a bit. On the top left, you have the turn bar, which tells whose turn is it. You are player 1, the computer's player 2. Currently, a lot of buttons are disabled, but by clicking the roll button, it makes a nice rolling sound, and it give me a random dice face, which is it's give me a 5. If that dice face was a 1, I would have gotten a Squid piece. If I hadn't, it would have given me nothing. Now, since I pressed the roll button, I have a lot more options. The strategies button opens up, and the next turn button opens up. Let me press the strategy button. As you can see, I have 3 different options: gain a roll, skip opponent's turn, and void opponent's last roll. Let's give myself a roll. Now with that, it shows a placard that player 1 used a reroll. Now I can roll again. I got a 2, and as you can see, each time I get a different face, the number that I roll is put into my respective table. Now, if I end my turn, you can see that player 2 does their turn entirely by itself. See here, the player 2 is completely automated the moment I press the end turn. Even has a choice to use strategies, but those are totally randomized. Once player 2 ends their turn, it will be our turn again, and the cycle continues. As you can see, as we play, the table to the right fills up the previous turns. This will be useful when both of us use previous turn voiders. Let's see how the code looks under the hood. Because, as for example, player 2 got a 1, meaning they get a piece. So if I roll and I get 2, I am jealous. So I use void opponent's last turn, and now their piece is gone. Now let's see what the code looks like. As you can see, here's our list of variables. They show all the needed rolls and the numbers meaning true or false. Editing any of these would totally break the entire game. Let's also see what happens when you boot it up. So here's our startup function. All of the player's 2 buttons are disabled, and so are the Squid buttons and the strategy button as well. And the table is set to no roll for both parties. And let's move on to Jala, who did the roll button code.
Hello, I'm Jalo, and I wrote the roll code. When you press the roll button and the end turn button for player 1 is disabled. Once this happens, A gift of the dice rolling appears. Before turning into a random image of dice, face 1 through 6. Once a dice face is gotten, its number is put into the respective side of the table. However, if you need the number variable is a 6 and you get a 6 face, the turn label will switch from the player turn 2. Hit the square button. Uh, it will also play a short warning sound when this happens. Sadly, I can't show this in action, as a game would take too long to get to that point. Hitting the square button goes to a whole other function entirely, which Jeffrey will talk about later. If you don't have a 6 spot, you do get your need number. You will get your respective square section. Your needed square number will go up by 1. This means if square section 1, next time you will need square section 2. When you end your turn, you will press the end turn button. This will change turns to the second player and close almost all buttons for player 1, so you cannot alter their size. Let's go to how player 2 works. Player 2 functions almost exactly how player 1 moves, except in the form of a function. The turn label turns to player 2. It's pretty much the same as player 1. Once player 2 makes their moves, their turn will go into its respective side of the table. Let's move on Jeffrey, who will talk about the strategy code for both players.
All right. Thank you, Jello. Well, as you can see, the strategies button is a rough one. Here our given options are given in the form of 3 apps for each of the players: the reroll, the turn skips, and the turn voiders. Our moves are put into variable options, which is put into larger menu named choices. Combining these variables allows us the use of 3 different options. Now this is how each option functions. Rerolls and turn skips are exactly the same. They just give the illusion of choice. Pressing either of these will allow the player to press their reroll button again, letting them get an extra turn. The turn voider is an entirely different story, however, as it is far more complex. When this is pressed, the other player's last score on the table will be removed. If his last turn was used to get a squid piece, this squid piece will be gone as well. If it was the first squid piece, the picture will go back to the original opaque squid picture. Every time you use a strategy, you have the possibility to use it again. You can use them all at once, but it's not recommended. Now let's go to how the computer player uses these strategies. Here we have how player 2 uses strategies. Player 2 uses the same format of how player 1 uses strategies, except that the computer player would not start using the strategies until player 1 had gone up to 2 squid pieces and had picked a random number greater than 5 out of a random number between 1 and 7. So once player 1 gets 2 pieces, player 2 will still have a 2 out of 7 chance to use any of the strategies. And all of the strategies will be used exactly the same as player 1, except that player 2 can use them all the time. Also, for both players, using a strategy will notify everyone by displaying a placard on the bottom middle of the screen. This placard will only be there for a few seconds though. Now let's discuss the squid button. You can only access the squid button when at least one person gets all 6 pieces. When someone gets a 6-piece squid, you must hit the squid button as fast as you can. The computer will also try to hit the button, trying to hit it faster than you can. However, it does it a little differently. The computer waits between half a second and 2 seconds to hit the squid button. So the computer can hit the button insanely fast or insanely slow. If you hit the button faster than the computer can, the turn label in the top left will turn into "you win the round," and you will get 1 point for winning the round, as can be seen in the bottom right corner. If you hit the button slower than the computer, your six squid piece will be voided, um, and you lose your last turn. This is exactly the same for player 2. If you manage to get 2 points, the game will end, and the game screen will delete itself and end screen will run, proclaiming you as a winner. If the computer managed to win 2 points, which I kind of doubt it will, the game will end and move to end screen 2, proclaiming that the computer as the winner. But how do you change rounds? Let's get to that. Here we have how the round changes. It's essentially a hard reset, resetting everything. The dice, the strategies, the table, everything except the round points. Your squid pictures you accumulate will all go back to the opaque squid versions. Neither rolls will go back to 1, and tables will be reset to having nothing. Now let's see those end screens. As you can see, end screens 1 and end screen 2 are pretty much exactly the same, except for the labels. End screen 1 is for when player 1 wins, and end screen 2 is when player 2 wins. Its only purpose is to show who won, and you can exit out of this by clicking on the X in the top right, or by going back to the menu or playing the game again. And that's it for the Squid Game Dice Project for Engineering 6. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and got a little bit more insight into how complicated and complex dice games can be underneath the surface. Goodbye!
Thank you for enjoying the presentation.